Greetings, this is Brian Harris with the Independent Black Voters. Our vote is not free. As we continue to do our series of Know Your Candidates, today I'm happy to have actually Leslie Cohen, who is actually, I'm in her district. So I get to vote for the person that I endorse, and that's always a neat thing to be able to do. So first of all, let's say, Leslie, I want to thank you for taking the time to get on this call and tell the independent Black voters a little bit more about yourself. Leslie, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Okay. Well, we're going to start off, let you tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about the position, and just get us started on why we would consider you as the best candidate.
Thanks. Well, my name is, again, Leslie Cohen. I represent Assembly District 29 in the Nevada State Legislature. I grew up very close to the area that I represent. I've had all my education in Nevada throughout college. I'm a lawyer. I represented the district in the 13 legislature, and then I came back and also represented the district in the 17 and 19 legislature.
Okay. Give me a lot of us. Tell us what you define to us, because state assembly, we hear state assembly, obviously we see them come through. What are the kind of roles, responsibilities? What does the state assembly do?
Okay, so the state assembly is the lower house of the Nevada legislature. Our Nevada legislature is bicameral, and so it's made up of the state assembly and the state senate. We meet every other year for 120 days. And that's the legislative session. The next session begins in February. And when we're not in session for those 120 days, passing the laws for the state of Nevada, we have interim committees where we meet, and that's where we have a chance to do a little more of the legwork of kind of doing deeper dives into issues that are important to us for the state.
Okay, great. And as I said, I want to thank you because for a couple of reasons. While I identify as an independent, again, I am nonpartisan. What I tend to do, so people understand, is I do pick a party for the primaries. I vote for whichever party I pick on the primaries, and then I go back and realign myself back with nonpartisan, because my belief is that everyone should earn the Black vote. They should earn everybody's vote. But far too many times we are identified or counted on the rolls instead of wooed and pushed to earn our vote. So I thank you, Leslie. Now this is your second or third term, correct? What is it?
So, right, I've completed my third term. I was appointed to serve in 13.
Okay.
As you may recall, there was what's considered a red wave in the 14 elections. So I did not serve in 15. I came back and was able to win for the 17 session, and then won and served in the 19 session.
Okay. How many sessions are you allowed to be in before you are termed out?
6.
6. Okay. So you got 3 more to go then. Good.
Right.
Good. Okay. I live in Henderson, but obviously I'm concerned not just about Henderson, but about the state. Tell me what you think are the key issues. What's your platform, and what do you think are the key issues right now that are prevalent on my community as far as voting?
As far as voting, I think, well, what we're kind of having to deal with for everything right now is dealing with COVID, and COVID certainly is affecting voting. Making sure that everyone can get to the polls, making sure that everyone can get their vote out there to count. We did recently pass some legislation in the special sessions that you're probably aware of, allowing vote by mail for the election that's coming up. So making sure that everyone's going to get that opportunity. Now, we still will have, to be clear, we'll still have voting centers, and anyone who does want to vote in person or wants to drop off their ballot in person will have that ability. But I think that's going to be the biggest issue for voting for us right now, and making sure that we can have that safe voting in Nevada.
Okay, and let me kind of, and I think I couched it the wrong way. From what you know about the Black community, what do you think are the major issues that we are dealing with? And give me your overview as it pertains to state assembly and legislation, et cetera. What do you think that our community is concerned about today?
Well, why don't you tell me? I don't want to speak for your community, and I want to hear from you and learn from you, and instead of telling you what I think think the Black community wants to hear from me. I want to hear from you
Okay.
and learn.
All right. And again, point taken. Obviously, we have right now civil unrest across the country. There's some issues with justice, there with equal justice under the law. There's some issues with systemic racism. So I'll give you that. Those are two. Give me your thoughts on systemic racism, and give me your thoughts on what is going on from the social justice issues going on across the country. Because while it is focused in the Black community, these are issues that are and should be concerned by all people involved.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And we should all be very much concerned with them. And I would invite your viewers to go to the Nevada legislature's website. All of our hearings, all of our bills are available. So during the special session, we did pay specific attention, not just to voting issues, but to systemic racism and some criminal justice reform. So you can read about those bills. You can read those bills. You can watch those hearings online. So just let me start with that so that people can see what we did do about that.
Okay.
Sorry, I just lost my train of thought saying that, however. But I think what we're seeing now is that for a lot of us, we kind of knew there was systemic racism, and but I think a lot more people are starting to understand it now. I think we're starting to realize that it really is something that is impacting the everyday lives of Black families, whether it's from obtaining jobs, obtaining credit, getting mortgages. It's just affecting people from generation to generation within families. So, and I think there's something that we're starting to pay more attention to in the legislature, and what we need to do to make sure that families do have an equal opportunity to obtain, frankly, the American dream, and move their families forward and do what's best for their families.
Okay. Let me pull that back, because there's a lot that the state assembly does do and they're not doing. And that's one of the things that we created the Independent Black Voters, because it is very important that systemic racism is through and through our culture, to the point where many people who benefit from systemic racism don't understand what systemic racism is. And I'll go back and give you some issues that I want to talk to. And again, I appreciate you talking to me, because I believe that, and I did a rant this morning, especially the Democrats, they need to stop taking our vote for granted. I'm glad you asked me what I thought. I wanted to hear what you'd heard, but they need to stop taking our vote for granted and listen. So I'm glad you're here to listen, and I want to hear what your thoughts are. And I'm going to go through some things, and we're going to be looking for people who are going to change their way they're doing things. We don't want people who just vote the party line. We don't want people who just state the party line. I do not profess to vote blue up and down. Everybody who I vote for needs to earn my vote or lose it. Not their party, but that person. So there's some things that went on that concern me, and I'm going to talk to you about them. And I'm giving you much kudos, because a lot of people don't. When you look about the fact that this legislation is predominantly dominant a lot of us were concerned, and I'm going to start off with the stadium. The stadium was designed, and there was supposed to be a community benefits program that was supposed to help every group rise with the tide. Many people came to the Black community talking about how great the stadium was and how much opportunity was going to be for Black folks. But yet, when the actual execution, systemic racism comes in, and very little opportunity really went to the Black community as far as business owners, because we don't just want to be jobs, we want businesses. As far as very few businesses that were actually physically working there, to even as many employees. And we came a lot to different people, and I wish we had talked before then, but different people in the legislature, and we heard crickets. There wasn't even an attempt to address the issues of promises made, promises broken. And going forward, we need to know we're going to have state assemblies that seriously don't just talk about breaking down the barriers of systemic racism, but are on our team to make those walls fall down. So I'll start off with that. And again, give me your thoughts on that. The stadium, I actually went to the Stadium Authority Board and asked the questions for a year. How many Black people were working? How many Black businesses were working? And they stonewalled me. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe our state assembly should not have stayed silent and should have helped that if they're serious, Democrat, Republican, wherever, don't tell me you got my back. But when I look at these are the ideas of systemic racism, these are the things that people are actually upset about, including social justice. So your thoughts?
Well, to be clear, I wasn't in the legislature when the stadium special session happened. Okay. So I wasn't part of that vote. And since that time, I wasn't aware that there was a concern that that there weren't, the jobs that were promised weren't happening. So, you know, I know a lot of people are concerned about what happened with the stadium for a lot of different reasons. But I can tell you, we've had a lot of great programs come out of the legislature that have helped Black small businesses. You know, Assemblywoman Dina Neal has her Nevada Grows program that, for instance, does a lot with tracking data that goes to small businesses to help small businesses know where are good places to open, what's the best way to open their businesses. Okay. So we are, you know, there are things that we are doing for small businesses in the communities.
And you know what? You mentioned Dina Neal, outstanding young lady. She swims against the stream when need be. She does what the community needs to do. And we don't need to have her out by herself. So going forward, should you win, Leslie, I'm in your district, I would like to have more access to talk about these issues, because I think a lot of times you all in those positions, as I said, if you're not on my side of the road, you don't know that, you know, the conditions of the road over here. And if you're not talking to the right people, you're only talking to certain people, they're not going to tell you the emperor has no clothes. Yes, okay, and I'm using this example, we were not happy. But when you look at there's some other issues. When you look at the requirements of what came out, the state assembly has a bill that's supposed to track the amount of Black businesses, Black workers, etc., in an attempt to make sure there's equity. We know that bill is in place, but nothing is done to make sure that it's happening. So we get business as usual. That is systemic racism. We get the same old excuses. Oh, well, we can't find people. Oh, well, we can't do this. Oh, well, we can't do that, because they do not believe that there is any teeth in these bills that are supposed to help. And again, I'm talking about the Black community, because people love to say minority or women, and both minority and women overall are doing pretty good, but the Black community is at the bottom of the barrel. So I use that as the stadium, weren't there, but I want to go on record to saying going forward, if we're going to support you, and there is a significant amount of Black people that are in your district, we need to know that it is not a hindsight or somebody else is fighting the battles for destroying systemic racism, but folks like yourselves, if we're going to vote. That's why, like I said, I appreciate this. We don't do this. Now, another example I'll talk about. and again, I commend you because you're listening and you want to hear some issues that need to go to your constituents even. A lot of times we hear people come out and talk about bills without giving us the information. They give us a high level fluff. We know the bill that came out for bail reform.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times the Democrats come over, they bang their chests and talk about bail reform and what they did. But the truth of the matter is, the people who pull back the onions know that it was so weak, it had to go to the Supreme Court to give teeth to it. We need to make sure that our assembly people are not basically throwing us under the bus and then telling us that it's good for us. It was so weak to the point, I think in the last legislation, they had to come back and put some more teeth into it. But the truth of the matter, it had to go to the to the Supreme Court. And that's why it's so important that we have people like Ozzie Fumu on the Supreme Court so that we can get true and actual equal justice under the law. So give me your opinions on that. My opinion on it was that the bill was watered down. And basically, I would have expected a stronger bill from a Democratic-held legislators. And how do we go about in the future making sure that we don't just talk about change to us when it is not actual change? We want that. We want actions, real actions, not after the fact. We're going to couch it the right way. What do you think on that?
Yeah, and I think what happened is when you're talking about bail reform, you're talking about a national conversation now. And what's happened to some extent with bail reform is that the language has been taken over and the conversations have been taken over and used as a scare tactic, right? No cash bail has been used by some people to scare people.
Yep.
And we've seen it. And so unfortunately now you have people who think, and this was done on Twitter, we saw it particularly on Twitter when those hearings were being held in Nevada at the legislature, that about, oh, Leslie Cohen, and I don't know how my name got thrown in there, but because I was on Judiciary Committee, but even though I wasn't one of the people bringing the bills, but just targeting all of us, saying, these bills are going to let murderers go loose, and we know that, you and I know, right, that bail reform does not mean that you let murderers go loose. It means that you say, if you don't let someone who happens to have a lot of money go free on without bail, or with bail just because they have a lot of money, versus someone who's got a lot of community ties that doesn't have a lot of money for the same crime, or the alleged crime, before they've been tried, right? We know that's what we're talking about, but that's not the way that was portrayed. So what we need to do is get a hold of that narrative and make sure that people understand, no, this is your right to not sit in jail for months before you're tried, just because you don't have as much money as the guy in the cell next to you who's been charged with the same crime, who happens to have a lot more money. And I think that's one of the things that we need to do. I mean, we see that a lot, that sometimes the wrong terms are used and they get taken over. It's the same thing we see with defunding the police. We know It's not about defunding the police. It's about utilizing the funds in a different way. But the damage to some extent has been done. And now we're hearing, that it's, oh, the left wants to defund the police. And some people who don't bother to learn what the issues are, what the terms mean, are now being, are getting afraid and being kind of pushed to be afraid. And so that, I think, is what kind of happened with bail reform. I think, though, it doesn't do us justice of the other things we did in the legislature last session, and the accomplishments we made, returning voting rights to convicted felons, things like that, things that we did accomplish for people in Nevada.
Yep. And Leslie, let me go and say this. There were some good things that happened, and I'm not, but when I'm talking here, because I'm going to give you a heads up. I'm a black man who's never been to jail. My wife has never been to jail. My family has never been to jail. God bless it. I hope that continues and it trends further. Many times everybody talks to black people like we're all ex-convicts, and that's the only thing that we're happy about is, oh, either we're increasing minimum wage, or oh, we're dealing with something in the prison system. I have a lot of empathy for the prison systems. I believe that that's an issue, but I'm trying to get our state assemblies and the people to understand we are more than just the prison system. We are more than just minimum wage. We are entrepreneurs. We want to talk about, the reason we want to talk about systemic racism is because we have to make sure that you all understand there are barriers of entry that are specifically keeping the black community from attaining the American dream, which ends up, if we're in the lower economic stratosphere, then we're going to be in jail. Then we're going to deal with needing assistance. We don't want assistance. We don't want the government to take care of us for the most part. We want to take care of ourselves. And it won't happen unless we have our state assembly folks to understand. And I say this, we are more than prison reform and minimum wage. And please, when I'm trying to get people to understand, we're more about business, and we believe business will create jobs, which black-owned businesses will create more black jobs, which will create less incarceration, which will create more opportunity, which will help get the end game of safer communities. It all goes together. And that's why I'll continue to come back. There's some issues that I wanted to talk to you about so that I know if you get this endorsement from the independent black voters that we're going to be talking about more than just the buzzwords from your party, but the things that we need to have done here. And a lot of them are based on economics. Now, that brings back, I'm going to jump back in economics. And I thank you, Leslie. You are moving very much closer to being looked at as a person if you talk. When the folks who ignore, who don't want to talk about the tough talks, they're not trying to earn votes. They're not trying to understand what the constituents, what the voters want. We want equal justice. We want equal opportunity. And I believe that the state assembly is going to be very important in making sure that is obtained. So there's some other issues, as I said, that we need to talk about, but I'm going to fast forward to business because, we have people who talk about, the food deserts, but they created to my knowledge, they created a bill with no money. So creating a bill with no money is like having nothing. And when you come to our community and say we're fighting to deal with food deserts, but we didn't put any money into it, it sounds good, but it don't smell right. Do you follow what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
and I'm kind of giving you some things that hold on, I got to tell this person I'll call them back. Hold on, I'll call you back in a minute. Okay, I'm sorry about that, but that's just some examples of things that we need to stay similar. And I'm talking to you not for Leslie, but as a state assembly person who's going to go talk to the other state assembly folks and say, whoa, maybe what we think is not what we know about our community, because our community is not monolithic. Everybody doesn't think the same. Everybody doesn't have the same knowledge base, and everybody doesn't have the same solution to the answers. And we have to look at what are the real answers for economic equality here in the state. The state is one of the biggest redistributors of wealth. And yet when you look at Black participation, not minorities, not women, because you can high five women right now, i.e. white women, but when you look at the actual economic opportunities for Black businesses, they're dismal here. We need to have legislation that starts, we need to, number one, enforce the legislation, especially the legislation for government works, that makes sure that there are penalties if people ignore the edicts that are in place. and then essentially strengthen them. You know what? If okay, oh, I hope I don't lose you. Let me see something here. We want to get to the point where people don't give lip service to trying to give opportunities, fair share opportunities. Nobody wants to be given something, but they want at least equal opportunity to get to not to somebody, because everybody comes to our community, jobs, 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 jobs. We want businesses. We want businesses that create our own jobs, not somebody else's businesses that create jobs. We had that in slavery. And the only way we get past that is to get people first, like yourselves, to understand we want the opportunity to own businesses and do businesses with the government. We need to look at why disproportionately Black businesses are left out off of the food chain. Are you still here?
I am. I hear you.
Okay, my phone from a Leslie Cohen is I need a person who wants to get more information on what is real systemic racism and how the state assembly can break down those walls, because after all the protests, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm locked, but I can hear you. It says recording. So after all the protests are said and done, my hope is that we are actually putting in action plans that are economic based. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'm following you.
Okay. Can you see me? Because I don't see you now. Huh?
No, I see you.
Okay.
Oh, you're freezing back up, but I hear you.
There we go. I'm back again. So Leslie, that's actually where we look at it here is I need to have somebody in the state assembly who doesn't just go to the same old people to ask them, because they might not be the right people that can tell you. We need access to capital. I'm gonna tell you something, and this is just an FYI. There were a lot of great programs here between PPP, between grants that were given out to try to sustain small businesses. Disproportionately, Black folks don't find out about them until they close, or till after, or till it's the end, or everybody else finds out. So guess what? We're the ones who need assistance the most, but we get the least in these issues. And our state assembly has to stop trying to say we're colorblind, because colorblind means we're not looking at the problem, and actually start putting in some types of race-based initiatives that make sure that everybody in the state has real opportunity and not fictitious opportunity. Does that make sense?
Yes. I don't know that we, though, as the assembly, say that we're colorblind. I think we do acknowledge the issues. I think we do acknowledge systemic racism, and even those of us who don't necessarily understand it, haven't lived it, you know, don't have don't have previous generations that maybe can trace it back and understand how it affects, for instance, building familial wealth, that type of thing. Doesn't mean that we're not acknowledging it.
Yeah. Acknowledging and destroying are two different things. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Acknowledging and destroying?
Acknowledging systemic racism and destroying systemic racism are two different things.
Right, yeah.
You're exactly right. If you are in the comfort zone and you acknowledge it's there, but you aren't doing anything to break and destroy systemic racism, then you're part of the problem. And that's the issue. And I'm not saying you, I'm trying to bring across the thing of it. Yeah, there are many people who acknowledge because they get the benefits of it, but they're not trying to destroy it. And that's where I'm coming at. Sometimes I need to have a legislation that at least realizes it's a problem more than just acknowledges, but also is putting in structures that are not giving people advantages, but just equal opportunity. And I'm talking, while I'm talking in the Black community, I'm talking for the Hispanic community, I'm talking about for the Asian community, I'm talking about for the white community. But it should not be the good old boy systems, which it doesn't just lock us out, it just disproportionately locks us out of our opportunities. And we believe that the state assembly needs to get more out of their comfort zone of just their party, but talk to people like myself who are identify as nonpartisan, and we will really determine who wins and loses future, this election and future elections. Yeah,
Right.
and so that's why I say that's why I continue to commend you, because I know you're out of your comfort zone. I know this is not the one that people sometimes, until they get to know me, realize, man, he asks tough questions, and I'm lasered point on the fact of my voting is about social justice and economic opportunity, and those are the two issues that we focus on, because everything else will start to fall in its place if we can address those two items and we can
Mhm.
get a state assembly that does that. So,
Mhm.
so tell me, is there going to be another special session, or are we through with the state assembly? I'm going to change a little.
I Yeah, I think we're done with special sessions. I think we're just going to prepare for the regular session in February.
Okay. Here's an issue, and I don't know what the state assembly can do, but it's another example of what I'm talking about when I say business, systemic racism, and changing things. Disproportionately, Black men and women were really, especially Black men, were incarcerated prior to marijuana becoming legal.
Mhm.
And it's great that a lot of times we hear about, oh, we've expunged their records, but they still lost time, life, money, opportunities, et cetera, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. Then when we did start the marijuana industry, what did we do? Excluded those
Right.
people from the opportunity to not just even work in it, but especially to own. I find it exceedingly embarrassing to this state that we have one 100% Black owned dispensary. We have, I think, two uh, cultivations. We have literally $1 billion industry that was taken out of the Black community and given to rich folks. And then we put in false barriers of entry to make sure that we cannot benefit from this growth industry. What can the state assembly do to rectify this problem? Because I'm going to say, I'm talking to you now, and I want to say, go on record, when Sisolak was running, I was at a town hall. I asked him that question. I will be asking him that question when he is up for reelection again, because I believe that's a perfect example of systemic racism, a perfect example of not just in that area, but other areas where African American businesses are purposely locked out of opportunities. What do you think? What do you think about that? That the whole situation in the marijuana industry, and how do we get more equitable opportunity for Black folks who have basically been forced to go to jail disproportionately on the fake war on drugs?
Right. And it's not just Nevada, it's throughout the country wherever there's been legalization. Right. It's been something that's been going on since legalization started.
But
Um,
I recently came back from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and
mhm.
I met a young man who had been incarcerated who now has his own dispensary. And I'm so proud of that man, because the laws were not put in place that locked him out, or they inflated the cost of entry. So now he is a very successful entrepreneur. So I'm going to come back and say, what can we do in Nevada to change the way we are administering licenses, opportunities, so that Black people as a whole have a chance to be in that one? And then we need to take that model to other places where we're being locked out of opportunities.
Mhm. Well, we do now have the, what do they call it? The Cannabis Compliance Board. Um, I think it's something that they need to be looking into, and it's something that needs to be brought to them. And we need to encourage them to make sure that we are reaching out to the Black community and to Black businesses, and to make sure that we do have a diverse cannabis economy in Nevada. I can't tell you about specific bills that we could bring in Nevada. It's not something, frankly, I thought of until this point. You raise a good point, but I hadn't really thought about it.
Well, that's where I come into place. One of the
Okay.
things I'm looking for, I need state assembly people who are going to be accessible. I need people who are going to not just put bills in because they are specific. The money people come in and they basically get the bills that they want in place. I need one who has access. You know, I talked to him who was running for, he's running for commissioner. And he said, we need access to you all to be able to say, these are the bills that we need that will kill systemic racism. Because if you're still talking to the same people, then we're going to still see the systemic racism is alive. I've given you many things that you said I don't think about because you are on the privileged class. If you don't talk to the people who see what's going on, then we'll have everybody talk about ending systemic racism and then going on with business as usual, and we cannot afford that in the future. So my question to you, should we endorse you? We expect to have access to be able to talk to help you figure out ways and support ways to end and destroy systemic racism.
Well, okay, but I mean, a couple of things. I don't think I said I don't think about those things because I'm in the privileged class. I will acknowledge my privilege. I do think about these things, but I don't think but to be clear, I am accessible. You know, we as the legislature are in the community. You've got my email, you've got my phone number. I am available when we don't have COVID going on. I canvass. You know, I'm at the doors. I usually am able to make it through the neighborhoods 3 times. At least I do 3 passes through the neighborhoods, knocking on doors so that I can talk to people and be at the doors. So it's not about just waiting for people to, you know, send lobbyists my way. I do talk to people and see what their interests are, where their interests lie. And that's often the way we get ideas for bills.
Okay.
But I'm,
Okay.
you know, I'm certainly available. I'm certainly accessible and available. You know, I do want to hear from you. I do want to hear from the people who are part of your organization, follow your, you know, I'm not sure if you do a podcast or how you get your, you know, how you provide this information, but you know, that follow you. I'm available. I'm out there.
Okay, well, you can join the Independent Black Voters on Facebook. We have almost 2,000 people on there and growing. I also have a TV station called Black Book TV News. We will put this on both of them, and I will take you up on that.
Okay, definitely.
Ms. Cohen, I'm going to tell you, and again, I appreciate you taking this call, and I appreciate you taking the questions and listening. We're going to be doing our endorsements here in the near future. I want to talk to you offline, recording a little bit more, but you've gone a long way by talking to us about these tough issues. What I'm going to ask you to do now is, because I can see you, but we're both locked up, is to give everybody, I'm going to thank you, give everybody all of your contact information, tell them what area actually, because some of us don't know what area you are the state assembly over, and also give them your contact information and just a quick ending of why they should vote for you.
Okay, thanks. So again, Leslie Cohen, I represent Assembly District 29. Assembly District 29 is the older part of Green Valley into downtown Henderson and a sliver of Silverado Ranch. My phone number is 702-715-0772. That's my cell phone. My email address is, it's my name spelled out. So let me say that for you. It's LESLEYCOHENAD29@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. You can also go to the legislature's website, and find me there.
I'll be back in a minute.
And please give me a call if you're a constituent. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. If you want to talk about my campaign, or if you just have any issues that you need help with, feel free to give me a call. I do want to talk to you, do want to talk to the issue, talk about the issues that are important to you, and give me the opportunity to earn your vote. I think you should vote for me because I do take these issues seriously. I appreciate the work that we do in the legislature. I understand that this work is important and it affects Nevadans' lives every day. These are really what we do affects people at their kitchen tables. It's how people are surviving day to day right now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Leslie. I really want to thank you because, again, I vote in your area. I did reach out to your opponent. He is yet to return my phone call. I'm going to reach out one more time and then I'm through. I appreciate you for sitting here and asking me what I thought instead of telling me. That was actually a very good response. We here, Black America right now is in a troubling time, just as America's in a troubling time. They say by 2053, Black America, and that was before COVID, would have no wealth. That has probably been accelerated. Black America depends on things like Social Security more than many other groups for retirement, and that is being quickly destroyed too. We must create a strong Black economy along with a strong American economy. They must both work hand in hand, and we must figure out ways to end systemic racism. It is not good for the privileged class, nor is it good for our class of people. We win together when we strengthen the chains of success for everyone. This is Brian Harris, the Independent Black Voters on Facebook, and the Independent Black Voters. Our vote is not free. We will be doing an endorsement ballot so that you will be an informed voter. Thank you very much. This is Brian Harris with the Independent Black Voters. Thank you. Okay. It says recording. Come on. Let me see if I can get this thing. Leslie.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, I can't. Do me a favor.
Okay.
I'm going to end this. You have my phone number, right?
I think so. It's probably on your emails.
Yes. If you can call me real quick, I'm going to end this and see if it records. Okay?